I'm ranking Disney movies. Doobie doobie doo. Right, hello and welcome back to my channel. Today's episode is definitely going to be a little bit different from previous episodes, as I have my husband here as a guest today, and I'm still experimenting with whether or not I want this series to become a podcast. Anyway, today's movie is Pinocchio, which I'm going to place in the number 2 spot on my list.
Or telling us right up front?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Just because spoilers, if people want to dip out, they can.
Okay.
But, sorry if that disappoints you.
No Tarzan? Okay.
So, doing a quick review of the current rankings of the videos. Tarzan is number 1. Pinocchio is going to take the number 2 spot. Then we have Lady and Tramp in number 3. 101 Dalmatians in the number 4 spot. Make Mine Music is number 5. And Fantasia 2000 is number 6. Moving forward, if you don't want any spoilers, now is the time to dip out. And as always, if you just want to see the rankings, I have 2 links down below for the movies that I'm ranking and the current rankings on my channel.
The idea that someone would want to be avoiding spoilers for a movie that is 85 years old.
I'm just saying, like...
This movie is past the average life expectancy of anybody in the world.
Look, I don't want to throw names under the bus, but we both know someone who still hasn't seen Forrest Gump.
Okay.
And is as old as we are.
That doesn't mean that person is going to be like, oh my god, I need to go watch Pinocchio before I learn what Pinocchio is about.
I just don't want anybody to have any spoilers, so if they don't want any, they can dip out.
Alright, well, when we see them, maybe tomorrow, I haven't looked, I will ask them what they think about Pinocchio.
Alright. So, Pinocchio for me is, I think, an important movie for childhood, just because it teaches, or at least touches base on the idea of that we shouldn't lie, right?
Sure, it's important. It's important to you? It's important to your childhood?
It's important to my
Pinocchio
childhood
is?
that we do not lie.
To your childhood?
More important to yours.
Alright. So, the reason I'm here, and the reason that I'm like, ooh, I want to talk with you about Pinocchio, and stuff, is because Pinocchio is super important to me. It's important to my family. My grandparents on my dad's side, they owned a miniature store, a dollhouse store, and it was like branded on Pinocchio. Technically, it was branded on the like Italian folk story, so that they wouldn't get sued. But I mean, let's be real. It was Disney Pinocchio. I mean, if you saw like the way that their signage was, definitely Disney Pinocchio. But, so that was a really big part of growing up, was that store, their house, so many amazing things. And, the movie of Pinocchio, of course, has become very important to me based on interactions and memories with them, but also other stuff too. Like, they collected a bunch of Pinocchio-related things. We had, I mean, we'll get to it, but there's the part where Pinocchio's singing and dancing, and we had a Pinocchio puppet that was actually mechanical, that you could press a button and it would start singing and dancing, and
My name's Pinocchio, dancing by my strings. Christmas time is finally here, and that is why I sing. This is such a special time, filled with lots of cheer. It's no lie, 'cause Christmas is my favorite time of year. My only Christmas wish this year is not for special toys. I'd much rather have no strings and be a real boy. Merry Christmas.
that was really cool. I remember that. But Pinocchio is great, and When You Wish Upon a Star is basically the quintessential Disney song. And I don't know how you can say that Tarzan is better, but we'll get over that. But yeah, I love Pinocchio.
I'm just a sucker for romance movies. So, like, Tarzan and Jane, they have their little romance going on. Where's the romance in Pinocchio other than Cleo flirting with everybody through the fishbowl?
All right.
That's pretty much why Tarzan is still number 1 for me.
Okay.
Otherwise, like you said, I love... Like, I wish I could go back and watch the VHS video instead of watching it on Disney Plus like I did this time. Because I wonder if
You
the
think,
fairy
like, the color
is...
saturation?
Well, the color saturation is... Like, they definitely touched it up. But I wonder if the fairy is as transparent as she is on VHS.
Oh, I mean, she's very like light and fluorescent and...
Yeah, but, like, you can see, like, furniture and stuff through her in the retouch.
Yeah,
I wonder if I can still see that on
that's
VHS.
there. That's intentional. It's part of, like, basically with animation, that style of animation, they had these, like, multi-staged cells, and they intentionally put less, like, inking, essentially, through her so that more light would shine through to the background.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if it shows up better today than it did then.
Maybe, yeah, I don't know. It's been so long since I've watched it in an older format. But
moving on, like, Jiminy Cricket is obviously our narrator, but he's also
so we
Pinocchio's
start off
conscience.
Right, so we start off Jiminy Cricket. He's just a down on his luck cricket in the pouring rain, looking for a break. And, I think a lot of people can relate to Jiminy Cricket in some ways. And he finds comfort in the home of Geppetto, who is a very kind, but not very rational person. He's got a big heart.
I think Maurice from Beauty and the Beast is more sane than Geppetto.
Sure. I don't even think Maurice is, like... actually that weird. Only Gaston thinks he's weird.
I don't know. I think a lot of the town in Beauty and the Beast thinks that Maurice is a little off his rocker, but I just see him as smarter.
He's eccentric, but he's not... I don't think they think he's crazy. Other than Gaston. But that being said, that's not the movie we're talking about. But,
Geppetto. It's like...
Yeah, so we find Geppetto. We meet him and his little family.
Yeah.
I can't believe I didn't mention this. So he has this cat, Figaro, black and white cat. When I was a little kid, we had this cat that we found. I mean, the cat found us. It was a stray, and then we took it in. We named her Figaro, even though Figaro's normally a male name, but looked exactly like the cat in the movie. So we couldn't not. And then we had that cat for like 17 years. So, yeah, we had that cat for a very long time. I miss that cat.
But yeah, Geppetto makes his wish on a star, first light. How's that thing go?
Oh, I don't remember
Starlight,
the exact...
star bright, first star I see tonight.
Sure, we'll go with that.
Wish I may, wish I might, have my wish, I wish tonight. Something like that. Wishes that Pinocchio could be a real boy because he doesn't have a son and his current family is the fish, Cleo,
Yep.
Figaro,
and the cat, Figaro. That's
and
it.
himself. And then he is just
of course,
a
all of his
toy maker and a
creations.
clockmaker, so...
And lo and behold, the fairy shows up, turns Pinocchio not really into a real boy, but almost, just shy of it. Certainly more alive than he was.
Yep, and then gives him the opportunity to become a real boy by proving that he's brave, courageous...
Loyal?
Brave, honest, and...
I think it's loyal.
Is it loyal? A loyal friend? It might be courageous.
Truthful and unselfish.
Truthful, unselfish, and brave.
There we go. We did it. But yeah. And he is, at the start, really none of those things, because... You know the expression, like, what, were you born yesterday? Well, he was born, like, 2 seconds ago. So, he doesn't know anything. And it's up to Jiminy Cricket to help him learn these things by being his conscience. And I've got to say, Jiminy Cricket, not a great conscience. He seems good at the start, but I think he gets a little tired of Pinocchio's crap pretty quickly. And just
quickly.
and I don't think he realized what exactly he had signed up for.
But like also, so like Pinocchio was born 2 seconds ago, and then Geppetto's like, "Oh, we're gonna have a little fun, dance around, get to know each other," and then all of a sudden he's just like, all right, you lit your finger on fire. It's time to go to bed before anything bad happens.
Sure.
And then he wakes up and the next day he's like, off to school you go, kid.
Where is school? What is school? Do I need anything for school? These all could have been good questions for Pinocchio to ask, or for Jiminy Cricket to offer up. But no, it's just go to school.
And also, the only question is why?
Yeah.
He asks why for everything.
Because he doesn't know anything.
Which totally reminds me of a time that I went to Home Depot with my dad. I had to have been like, I don't know, 5, 6 maybe, and I just remember him picking up wood. I don't know what he needed it for, but I just asked him, I was like, Dad, why do we call a table a table? And he was like, I don't know. And I was like, okay, well, why do we call? And I just kept asking him why we call things what we call them. And eventually he was just like, all right, no more questions.
Well, yeah. So Geppetto, I feel like, got to the no more questions part really quickly. It was like, ask one question, and hey, that kid's going to school. Look at that. Send him away. No, I don't think Geppetto was actually thinking that. I do think maybe he was still in shock about the whole thing and didn't know what to do. Obviously, this was a new experience for him. It was a new experience for anybody. And he was just like, well, I guess if he's going to be a boy, then let him be a boy. And there he is. And as nonsensical as it was, it gets the plot moving. So there we go.
Yep.
So,
and then, on his way to school, Pinocchio gets kidnapped by a fox and a cat.
I don't remember his little lackey's name. It's Honest John is the fox.
I think it's Giddy.
Okay.
And Giddy's the cat, but they basically are like, Pinocchio, we're gonna turn you into a star. And then they sell him to this Italian dude who treats him like garbage. And he takes place in a marionette show with no strings.
I have news for you. They're all Italian dudes. This is in Italy.
Okay, well, like this really mean Italian dude who plans to... Alright, Honest John and Giddy sell Pinocchio to this Italian dude who treats Pinocchio like garbage and throws him in a cage.
After, Pinocchio is a bona fide star on the stage and makes that dude a bunch of money, which Pinocchio doesn't really get any of it. But somehow, Jiminy Cricket sees him being successful on stage and is like, he doesn't need me. He's got life figured out. Which, again, there's a lot of people, I think, failing Pinocchio here. But we'll get there. We'll figure it out.
And then,
so he's locked in the cage.
Yep, and the way he gets out of it is basically Jiminy is like, you know what? I'll at least say goodbye to him. So he shows up. It's like, yo, Pinocchio, what happened? And
that's exactly how he says it.
Yo, Pinocchio.
Yo, Pinocchio.
Hold on. I'm pretty sure
my dude, my guy.
I'm pretty sure it's Yo, Pinocchio.
Oh my god.
No, that other kid called him Pinocchio. But anyway. He's like, yo, Pinocchio, what happened? And then tries to get him out of the cage and finds out that he can't open this lock despite being small enough to fit inside. And they both just sit there and cry about never being able to see Pinocchio's dad again. And then the fairy, being the goddess fairy that she is, comes down to help them. But before she helps Pinocchio, she teaches him, I guess, the consequences of lying.
Yeah, this is obviously the thing that Pinocchio is super known for, the idea that when he tells a lie, his nose grows, gets bigger. There's a little metaphor, or whatever the word is, about basically even a little lie doesn't last longer than your nose, and so it's better to be honest and truthful, and I think it's a really great way of illustrating all of these things. There's a ton of visual elements to Pinocchio that I do love, and I think do hold up really well despite its age. Not just in the idea of it's a pretty movie with good animation, and if you understand how that animation is made, it's incredibly skillful, obviously. Disney was literally the best. But the way that It is showcasing all of these things that, I mean, if we're being honest, everybody does from time to time. Everybody tells a little lie sometimes. But how they can get away from us in a really comical and interesting way that is, like, great to look at and watch is, I think, done very well. And people think about the lying, but I think that there's so much more to all of it than just that. I mean, we talked about needing to be truthful, needing to be courageous, needing to be unselfish. He struggles with all three of these things, and while they don't necessarily... Well, okay, one of them does have another very visual element, but we do see this represented throughout the movie in a way that I think is done really well.
Let's see. After he is freed from the cage, he decides that he's going to go home, see his dad go back to school. And when he's, like, racing Jiminy home, Honest John and Giddy
find him again. Yeah.
And basically you're like, oh man, you don't look so good. You look really stressed. You deserve a vacation at Pleasure Island. And Honest John hands him a playing card and is like, there's my ticket. And Pinocchio, knowing absolutely nothing about the world,
it's like, this is a ticket.
Ends up following Honest John and Giddy again because Jiminy's raced him home and is in front of him and doesn't notice that he's gone. And he ends up on a carriage along with a bunch of other kids.
Yeah, all of these kids are being abducted. These are kids that are, being truant. They're causing havoc through the streets. They're causing a lot of problems. Nuisance kids that just need help, but actually people aren't helping them. Wow, great.
And then they basically get taken to this island where they can just be as bad as they want to be. They can smoke cigars, they can drink beer, liquor, they can break things, they can wreak havoc, like you said.
Yep.
But
and it's like a carnival, almost like an amusement park, but it's all a front for some great big operation where this is an element. Like,
really, the movie is very
it is a little scary.
It's a little scary, but also like it's comical and nonsensical.
Yeah,
but it's definitely like we are depicting something happening here.
Yeah,
but we're gonna cover it up with something funny.
Sure. Yeah. There is a element to this that, the film is a product of its time, and there are things in here that they wouldn't say or do normally. This is one of them that they would never make today. The idea that basically they turn into donkeys, right? The kids turn into donkeys, and they're being sold as donkeys for... is it just about money? Is it...
Yeah,
is there something else to the donkeys? I don't remember.
I think, basically when the guy that is paying Honest John for the boys is discussing things with them, you notice Honest John... I think the reason Honest John picked Pinocchio to sell to this guy, or to take to this guy, was because he knew that what was going on wasn't right, and he didn't feel right selling a real boy.
No, I don't think that's it at all.
You don't think so?
No, I think he sold Pinocchio because... he had already tricked Pinocchio and sold him into essentially slavery once.
Yeah.
And so he was like, at some point, Pinocchio will understand what happened, and then that's a witness.
Yeah.
So he needed to get rid of Pinocchio
again. But anyway, when that guy's discussing with him, Honest John goes, but they're boys. And he goes, but they never return as boys.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he's a little, confused about it. More so, the idea that they will blab, people will go looking for them, but if they never find them, then it's hard to trace it back to Honest John and other people.
Yeah, so...
I don't think that there is an ethical bone in Honest John's body.
No. But anyway, the boys get turned into donkeys.
And they even say, hey, you look like a jackass. And it's it is actually pretty funny.
Pinocchio's like... What does he think? Or the kid that Pinocchio's with, he's like, what does Jiminy think I look like? A jackass? And
yeah.
Pinocchio's like, you do
look like a jackass. Because he's, turning into a donkey, and yeah.
Yep, and then once Pinocchio kind of sees his friend growing ears, growing a tail, turning into a donkey, all of a sudden Pinocchio starts pushing away his cigar and pushing away the beer, and he's not consuming it anymore.
Yeah, so he doesn't turn all the way, he's just partially.
Yeah, so he only grows ears and a tail.
Yep. And I think that's actually a pretty fun little bit of animation. All of the stuff with the swishing tail and the floppy ears and doing all of that is, I think, pretty neat. But obviously, it's showcasing him moving away from being a real boy, right? So he's gotten off track, and he needs to correct course. So I'm trying to remember. How do they get back?
So they
I
off
forgot.
Pleasure Island, end up in the water. Him and Jiminy end up kind of swimming to a rocky shore, pulling up there. And immediately after that, they just kind of start running home. And once they get home, they realize that Geppetto and the shop is like all locked up and nobody's there. And then once they realize that Geppetto and nobody's at the shop, a magical dove from the fairy...
Oh yeah, the fairy saves them.
Gives them a note, and it tells them that Geppetto's been eaten by a whale.
Yeah, Monstro.
Which is also just ridiculous.
Yeah, just very outlandish that, like, definitely this part of the story makes actually no sense.
Like, why would Geppetto leave shop?
There was nothing indicating that... Oh, no, he went out to look for him, right? But still, the idea that the whale, right? Yeah. So, they have to go find the whale, and there's this whole underwater sequence, which is... again, to me, all of these classic Disney stories, like, the stories are fine, and they're interesting, but they're not, like, masterful storytelling. What's interesting to me is the animation and the style of the time, and how they, really, the movies and the story are an excuse to do the animation, as opposed to the animation being in service of the story. So... I really like the underwater section because, like, how they animate them being more floaty and, like, all of the little Foley sound effects. I saw a clip the other day of the guy that was the principal Foley artist for Disney for, like, 45 years. And, of him doing his sound effects in real time along to the movies, or at least clips that he had set up, was really cool. And I definitely picked out some stuff in rewatching it this time of like, oh, this is him doing that thing. And I thought that was really cool. And I love all of that kind of stuff. It's actually really great. But they do get to Monstro.
Yep, they get to Monstro. And after entering into the whale's belly, Pinocchio ends up being fished up by his father.
Doesn't realize he did it.
Yep. Geppetto doesn't even realize he's fished up his son, and then he starts talking to him, and Geppetto's like, "Not now, Pinocchio. I'm catching fish."
It's such a timeless and great gag.
And then he's like, "Oh, Pinocchio!
Pinocchio! Oh!" Geppetto is someone that if I knew them in real life, I would be like, how can someone be this dumb? But in the context of the movie, I actually really enjoy Geppetto for being just this totally aloof, silly dude.
He's more aloof than his cat, which is kind of
yeah. The cat has their head on straight.
But yeah, he fishes up Pinocchio, makes sure Pinocchio's all right, and then after that, he's like, we're never going to get out of here. We're just going to live in this whale's belly for forever. And eventually Pinocchio comes up with this idea to make Monstro sneeze so that way they can escape through his mouth. And so he begins to light everything on fire inside of Monstro, and they take a raft that Geppetto had built before trying to get out of Monstro's belly, and they use it to escape. So, like, yep, right after they escape Monstro's mouth, he chases him down. Geppetto thinks Pinocchio's dead, lays him on a bed, and then all of a sudden the fairy makes him a real boy. And he's like, "Dad, I'm a real boy." And Geppetto's like,
you are a real... Oh, yeah.
He's like, no, Pinocchio,
That's
you're
right,
dead.
Yeah,
You're dead.
Yeah. He's like, no, you're not a real boy, Pinocchio. You are, in fact, deceased. You have died. And he's like, no, I'm alive.
You're this dead piece of wood.
You are alive. You're a real boy. And they're jumping up and down. And it's...
And then, like you said, choir leads us out, and it only makes me want to see the rest of Pinocchio's story. Like, does he ever go to school? Does he ever make it there, even as a real boy? What happens as a real boy? Does he gain a conscience?
Maybe he does. Oh, and Jiminy Cricket gets a little badge from the
badge,
yeah. It was a small detail that was just a nice little callback that I appreciated. They wrapped up Jiminy Cricket's story.
And then I don't know if you know this, but growing up, like when I went to my mom's house, I'm pretty sure I had access to a dollhouse from your grandma's shop.
Oh, I'm sure. It was actually,
you know,
it was a
hardwired
very,
with electric, so all the lights turned on. It was interior decorated. Everything was wooden.
It was a very successful business.
It was a very successful business. And,
she actually was crazy about the store and my grandma, and is that in the late 90s, she like saw the future of commerce, and she actually did a lot with e-commerce immediately. She was really on that for being, you know, an old lady. And yeah, it was pretty crazy.
But yeah, so Pinocchio moves into our number 2 spot, knocking Lady and Tramp down to 3rd place. And the only reason it's not number 1 is I'm a sucker for romance movies, and Tarzan has its little love story. And that scene where he's swinging with Jane in the vines.
What is he holding on to?
It seals the deal.
What is he holding the vines with? She is in both of his arms.
No, she's not. She's on her own vine.
Oh, sorry. There's a different scene where she is in his arms and he's swinging.
Oh, yeah. He's holding onto it with his toes. Which is like, that is some impressive strength.
I don't know if we want to edit this part out or not. I'm not sure what kind of content you're going for. But I saw a picture that someone had done where it's like, what is he holding on to this with? And it's just, it shows his back and the vine is just through his butt crack. And he's just like clenching real hard.
That's so funny. Like, actually, the last time we had friends over and I was mentioning that, you know, I was doing this on my channel, I was like, yeah, as a lady, I have a newfound appreciation for Tarzan. But, and then friend confessed that they, like, George of the Jungle is their guilty pleasure movie.
So I mean, if we're talking like actually Brendan Fraser,
yeah,
then,
that's
like,
exactly what we were talking about.
I get it, you know. I mean, The Mummy and just saying.
I really like Brendan Fraser.
Oh, Brendan Fraser's terrific.
George of the Jungle, but I find George of like, don't get me wrong, Brendan Fraser's sexy, right? But like,
Brendan Fraser's great. I'm not going to say that George of the Jungle's particularly good.
Oh, I wasn't going to say that it was necessarily good, but I love how comical it is.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But back to Pinocchio. It's number 2 on my list now, and I hope you guys enjoyed this podcast style video that I'm going to be doing. I'm not sure if I'm going to make it a podcast. And just experimenting with stuff as we go along.
Are you going to make it a video?
I'm going to at least have the openings.
Oh, okay. Yeah.